Hey, this is Jeremy with R4 Restoration, and we're here on a commercial property doing a structural repair job. When we first started this project, actually a few months back, we got a call late one Friday night about their structure collapsing. They had just had a structural engineer walk their property and told everybody to vacate their offices. So we came in that very next day and we did some temporary shoring to make sure that things weren't going to fall down or collapse on anybody while we could get a plan in place to actually do the reconstruction. Over here we had our exterior walls that were 3 inches out from plumb where they should have been. The trusses started collapsing to where they were 3 inches lower than where they should have been, and there was a gap actually in between our trusses that caused a 3.5 to 4 inch gap in between a lot of these trusses where they connect at the bottom cord. So when we came in, we did some temporary bracing. We had a structural engineer draw up plans on how to put everything back together correctly. When those plans were developed, then we could move on to the next step. And the next step was actually shoring up the building and making sure that it got the exterior walls back to plumb, those bottom cords come back together and rise that whole ridge back up in place. So getting a shoring engineer involved and a lot of temporary shoring equipment, screw jacks and everything, we were able to actually get these walls back together and get that cord touching again by doing a single point of pressure right here along this panel point, and actually lifting from this single panel point, we're able to get everything back in place. Now, when we had torn out this drop ceiling and everything, we actually discovered that the whole cause to this problem was that a heating and air contractor had moved the unit from the crawl space up into the attic. And when they did that, they did 2 things that caused all of this structure to collapse or start its collapse. They cut out the diagonal web member that was in place in order to get their unit up in there, and then they added several hundred additional pounds of weight to that truss load that wasn't ever designed for that. And so by cutting out that web member and adding that weight, it just turned into a nightmare for these property owners. I believe the repairs or the HVAC system was added probably a good 10, maybe even 15 years prior to the revelation of what was going on here, and prior to the collapse even being what it was. You know, they had noticed for a couple months maybe some of the walls were out, starting to crack, starting to pop a little bit, but it had taken that much time for this structure to finally give in to that added damage. So we had to remove the entire ceiling in order to access and do the framing that we needed to. All the insulation, we had to remove all that as well. And then when we did the framing, these 5 trusses here where the mechanical unit is, we actually had to sister on or rebuild the entire truss from front to back and make sure and do all new gussets, all new 2x4s. We used Simpson truss screws throughout this whole process, glue in between all our plywood gussets and our panels and everything, so that way we could actually make sure that this was a secure structure for them. In addition to that, we also did these bottom cord repairs from one end of the building all the way to the other. Roughly about 80 feet long that we had to do these bottom cord repairs in order to make sure that those bottom cords would never split apart again at those splices. We're finished with all the difficult part of the job. We did all the shoring, got all the walls back plumb, and now really the next steps are pretty easy. You can see some previous contractors never secured any of their electrical. We got a lot of wires hanging down. It's a hazard. It's not up to code. We also have to go in, make sure that everything gets brought back up to code. We secure all the wires, all the potential hazards that are up there. We're going to have to put insulation R38 back in our ceiling here, finish out all the drop ceiling, a little bit of drywall and paint repairs, and we should be good to go.